Are you ready to navigate the new way to work? Forbes Books presents Dare to Care in the Workplace with Kathleen Quinn Botaw. Here's Kathleen.
Hello, everyone. My guest today is Bob Sutton. I'm very excited to welcome him. He is amazing, and he has wrote several books. The No Asshole Rule is one of my favorites. Good Boss, Bad Boss. And today we're going to focus on his new book that he co-authored with a guy named Huggy, who I want to hear all about, by the way. Anybody who's named Huggy, I want to hug. The new book is called The Friction Project, How Smart Leaders Make the Right Things Easier and the Wrong Things Harder. Hey, Bob, welcome to Dare to Care in the Workplace.
Oh, it's great to be here, and it's great to meet you, Kathleen. I'm excited to talk.
I'm excited to talk to you, too. So in preparing for this, I looked up the definition of friction, and the definition is a conflict between the wills and temperament and opinions of other people, which is kind of where we're at, isn't it? I mean,
that's interesting. That's one there's different. That's not what we mean by friction, but that's like.
So tell me what you mean about friction. Let's start there.
I guess we use the sense of friction, and I'm sure if there's a physicist who's listening or watching to this, that they will say that's not quite right. But we mean the situation where an individual or a team tries to do something in the workplace, and it's harder than they want, or it's downright impossible. The feeling of walking in muck or struggling, or things just being more, the red tape. The rule that says that you can't do it. The fact that you have to read through a 2,000-word email from your boss. This actually happened to me. It's in the book. To try to figure out what the heck they mean, and then finally figure out that, no, I don't want to do this, rather than having a headline. So that's what we mean. We mean by friction. And then there are some things that should be hard or impossible to do. We can talk about that as well. It's that feeling that things are harder to do than you initially want them to be.
And sometimes, as your title says, smart leaders make it harder for their people to innovate and create and to make more money. They put roadblocks in front of their own people, and they don't even know they're doing it.
So, it's interesting to talk about innovation, because innovation is, and I've spent much of my life studying innovation and hanging around people like David Kelly, who started IDEO and something called the Stanford Design School, one of the leaders of the Stanford innovation efforts, and just being around a lot of innovative executives and engineers, and not everything should be easy. So yes, you do want situations to get, permission to buy something, permission to go out and interview users, maybe permission to kill a bad idea. All that should be really easy. But when it comes to innovation, and two people, my inspiration here, Ed Catmull, who ran Pixar for 28 years, and Jerry Seinfeld, who I never met, but I've been following, they both give you the perspective that the hard way is the right way. There's going to be a lot of failure. There's going to be actually a lot of constructive conflict. And there's this great interview that Jerry Seinfeld had with the Harvard Business Review. God knows how Jerry Seinfeld got in the Harvard Business Review. And so it starts out, and Larry David, who, if you're going to work with somebody you're going to argue with, Larry David, you're going to argue the whole time. So HBR asked Jerry Seinfeld, they said, so you and Larry David, you struggled, you had all these micromanagement issues and conflict and everything. Wouldn't it be easier just to bring McKinsey in to figure out how to make it more efficient? And Jerry Seinfeld had this great line, which was, "Who's McKinsey?" And they explained it's a large consulting firm. Yeah. And then he says, "Are they funny?" And I know a lot of people from McKinsey, they are not funny.
Funny.
They are not
funny. Sorry,
funny.
McKinsey.
Yes. There's a few funny partners, but they hide it. And then he said, if they're efficient, I don't want them. The hard way is the right way. And all the evidence about what it takes to be innovative is there's a lot of failure. There's a lot of frustration. There's constructive conflict. And that's kind of if you're doing it right. And when people try to hurry up the innovative process, it ends up being lousy. That's what Ed Catmull at Pixar especially emphasized. We don't talk about efficiency. We talk about doing great work, and we just iterate over and over again until it's right.
hmm It's kind of that theory, no pain, no gain.
Yep.
You gotta move through it to get to the other side, right? You got to get through to get from.
I love that. But assuming it's worth struggling for, I mean, it's just, just this morning, we were trying to send a picture of our tree to the city of Menlo Park where I live because we have a bad tree in front of our house. My wife and I, she's like a CEO and I'm allegedly a management professor. We both sat there for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to send a picture of our tree to the city of Menlo Park. And I don't think that should have been that hard. That's not good friction.
So let's begin at the beginning. So what originally drew you to study organizational psychology and management science?
Ooh. So I'm 69 years old, and I've been essentially an organizational psychologist of some kind or another since I was 21 or 22. So I've been, and
you look great.
Well,
so
thank
handsome.
you. Keep lying to me. I love that. So what happened is, I'll tell you. So, I come from a family where nobody's educated. It's like we were the first generation to go to college, and my parents, especially my father thought that I was just wasting my time in college, and I should go into the family business, even though I did not get along with my father very well. And the family business was sort of being a subcontractor, a defense subcontractor, basically what he was, a little one. And so I kept avoiding him, and I kept staying in school longer and longer. And I eventually started dating my then girlfriend, now wife, and her father was a professor. God, that looked so much easier than being a defense subcontractor. And plus, I'd have to work with my father. and then, so I became a psychology major, and it seemed like there was no money in psychology. And then I heard about this thing called organizational psychology, and I started doing research in the psychology business, and eventually I got my PhD at the University of Michigan, and was very lucky to get a job back in the Bay Area where I grew up. That was kind of by accident. But my main jobs before that was working a pizza parlor, delivering pizza, and so that's what I kind of did before. So I've had two jobs in my life essentially. I worked at a pizza parlor. I worked in a chicken place before that, and then I was a professor. That's my whole career.
Pizza, chicken, professor. It works. I see the path. It's a wonderful path. But what a wonderful place to study psychology, at a pizza parlor or a chicken place.
Oh yeah. Well, the other thing is, I joke, I used to deliver pizzas to the Stanford campus where I then worked. For 40 years I worked at Stanford, and gosh, it's in some ways a similar job. It's actually a lot harder working at the pizza parlor, to tell you the truth. There's a lot more demands. So
I agree. I think every young person should have a job in public service, in waiting tables, and really understanding that you can't control the general population. You don't know who you're going to get at your table.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the skills to respond on the spot. I had my 23-year-old son just did that for about 6 months. And he said, Mom, people don't talk to their kids. They put screens in front of them all the time. He's 23 and he's like, I'm never going to put a screen in front of my kid.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, another thing, moving to the kind of the methodologies that I was trained in, and especially when I was a more traditional academic, although I still do this, my perspective has always been to try to get as close to the front lines as possible. And my dissertation was on organizational death. So this is not what causes it, but what it feels like when a plant is closing or there's large scale layoffs, for both the managers and the workers, and trying to get as close to that as possible is to me has always been very important. Sometimes it's interviewing people, but a couple of the things I did, I studied 7-Eleven stores at one point, courtesy in 7-Eleven stores. So I worked in a 7-Eleven store now and then to have appreciation for the process, which was pretty interesting. So, but mostly I'm just, for example, when I studied healthcare workers, it would probably not be a good idea for me to do surgery since I don't know how to do it.
No, please don't.
but I watched quite a bit, so that's different.
Good. And it didn't gross you out?
No. Surgery's kind of, no, it didn't gross me out.
Okay, good. Yeah, because it would gross me out. Okay. So sidebar, I did have the honor of going through a class with Jennifer Aker, your storyteller. Oh my God. Do you know her?
Oh yeah. I've known Jennifer since she was a PhD student. I've known her a long time. She's just amazing. She's remarkable.
She is amazing, and call out to her. She's wonderful. She focuses on the power of story. So I did have a little wonderful class with Stanford and her, and it was just wonderful.
She's fair. She's fair. The funnest thing Jennifer and I did years ago is we did a consulting job to the top team of People magazine when magazines actually mattered. And, and Jennifer, I was like even then I was like an old fart, and she was like the flashy young professor. And she actually read People magazine. So that was good. But the funniest thing, this is a digression, but it is the funniest thing I remember was there was so much crying, and especially the men. There was half men and half women. And we spent like 3 days. We thought we were going to be doing like, a management consulting thing. And there was just all this cry because they had all this, it was like doing group therapy, which Jennifer was actually very good at.
I'm sure she was.
So that was one of my experiences with Jennifer, with the crying People magazine executives in New York City.
You know what? Sometimes a good cry is the best medicine to most anything. Get in a room and cry together. It's going to work out. Right? So tell me what motivated you and Huggy to write the Friction Project,
Well, so as in everything in life, there's two parts. There's the intellectual and the personal. So intellectually, we'll start with the intellectual part.
Yes.
Intellectually.
Let's be grown-ups for a minute.
So Huggy and I wrote a book, here, Scaling Up Excellence. Here it is. And this book is about growing organizations, spreading good things in organizations, like innovation practices, efficiency, whatever you want. And along the way, there were all these organizations that we worked with. And this is the curse and the blessing of being I've been in the engineering school at Stanford for some 40 years, is that there'll be organizations that I meet when they're little and cute, and they get huge. So Facebook, now Meta, I worked with them when they had about 200 people, and I worked for a 25-year-old head of HR named Chris Cox, who's still there, lovely guy, and then Google had students at Google early, Salesforce. They start little and they turn into these giant organizations,
ginormous,
where it's just impossible to get anything done. All three of them. If you talk to people who've been there forever, and it's okay. So that's the problem. Is we're interested in how you lead a large, complex organization, and then why does it become so difficult to get things done, and how can you make it better? So examples of organizations that actually have grown large, but it's actually relatively easy to get good things done. Amazon and Walmart would be examples. They're kind of hard-ass organizations, but they really are execution-oriented. And then there's the more personal part. Then the more personal part was that just the frustrations that we had with our own employer. The opening paragraph of the book describes a very long, like a 1,500-word email that we got from a senior Stanford leader with a 7,000-word attachment that wanted us to spend a day on Zoom brainstorming. All 2,000 professors at Stanford. Yuck. So that was like, really, why are we doing this? And then just little things, just like trying to deal with Comcast as a customer, just drove me nuts. So
CenturyLink here, just we can't deal with them anymore.
That just becomes harder and harder. So that's the bad news. But along the way, and this is what's I think important to talk about, is we started out pessimistic, and if you want to get a group of people to complain, it's really easy just to say, what's driving you crazy? They'll say they work in frustration factories. One of my favorite ones, this senior executive, she said, they want me to show initiative, but I feel like I'm like sort of like wading through a sea of shit every day. How am I supposed to get anything done? But then along the way, we sort of figure out, well, there's actually organizations and teams that get rid of bad friction. And then there's the notion that some things in life should be hard and some things should be impossible. And so we ended up with having, a little bit of a more sophisticated argument. And also, we're academics, so you should never trust us. But we really, you shouldn't. But we really, our focus really is on being practical. And that's the one thing that I would say, sort of the arc of my career, that one thing I've tried, and I hope I've gotten better in my old age, is my perspective is that those of us who are in academia, if we're not doing something that is ultimately useful and maybe can make the world a little bit better, even in tiny ways, then maybe we're just wasting our time. So that's my take on management research, the behavioral sciences in general. That's sort of my mission, is to try to do stuff that has a positive impact.
Well, sir, I'm sure you have 40 years of doing something and doing something good. You can't stay at Stanford for 40 years if you're not doing something good. Just going to say that out loud. No, you can't. I'm sorry. I can call BS on that. So tell us about Huggy. Tell us, how did you start collaborating with Huggy?
His official name is Hayagriva Rao, but everybody, including his mother, calls him Huggy. And he is a very lovable, very kind person. But so he got hired, I'm thinking 16 or 17 years ago. We stole him from Northwestern University.
Excellent.
And he came to the business school. He's already a prestigious professor. And we just started hanging out together and drinking wine together. And one thing led to another. And we said, gee, maybe we should do a book. And we did get interested in scaling. The reason we got interested in scaling was that there were all these companies we were working with, and they were asking us questions about scaling, and we didn't know the answer to it. So we thought we should try to give them better answers. So that's how we got interested in scaling. And then, as I said, all these companies that we worked with, many of them got larger and more complex, or like Microsoft, they were already large and complex, and it was hard to get things done. And so we got interested in trying to sort of fix how they could fix things and make things better. And we just sort of like hanging out together too. So we've taught a lot of classes together, done a lot of stuff with executives. And I think I'm sure you and most of your audience know, if you're working with people you don't like, life's no fun. If you're working with people that you do like, life is much better. So I think that's another reason we like working together.
And also people that you really like to drink wine with. That did not slip by me.
Well, Huggy is so much more sophisticated with wine than I am. In fact, there's a good part of our relationship, which is that when he starts feeling guilty, he'll buy me. He collects really expensive bottles of wine. He'll give me one because I'm not going to pay $100 for a bottle of wine. I'm sorry, but when he feels really guilty, he gives me an expensive bottle of wine. So I don't really mind when he feels guilty.
What's your favorite wine?
Oh, I like almost anything, but lately, really nice white wine, Burgundy from France, probably. Given my choice.
Okay, I'll come right over. You can open that bottle of wine. That's all the way from Colorado for a glass of wine. I would come that far for a glass of wine.
Where are you in Colorado?
So I live outside of Denver, in Conifer, Colorado, at 9,500 feet above sea level.
Well, I had a daughter just left Leadville about a year and a half ago. So she was even higher than you are. Yes. Beautiful territory you're in.
Yeah, and when I come to your sea level, I'm like Wonder Woman. I have so much oxygen. It's like, yay! I can do anything. It's wonderful, and this conversation has been wonderful too. But we have to take a break. Next time on Dare to Care in the Workplace, Bob Sutton, the organizational psychologist, Stanford professor, and best-selling author, will share some of the ways to prevent death by meeting.
If you're invited to a meeting and you know it's not useful to be there, to have permission and even be encouraged to say, I'm sorry, there's no reason for me to be there. I'm not going to help you. Let me use my time for something else.
This has been Dare to Care in the Workplace. To connect with Kathleen, go to KathleenQuinnBotaw.com. Kathleen's book, Dare to Care, is available wherever books are sold. Dare to Care in the Workplace is a production of Forbes Books.